All right. Welcome everybody to our Monday Zoom and Learn. We hold these Zoom and Learns every Monday at 12:30. It's the same Zoom link each week. We make it easy and we try and offer value to you so that you can then add value to your clients. So we are grateful that you are all with us. We do have a full house, so I would ask that if you have questions, put them in the chat. We will monitor that. And then we will also have time at the end for questions and answers. My name is Tommy Dutcher. I'm the area sales manager with California Title. And I love to see that we have a whole bunch of new faces on here today. So we hope that you'll join us each week. We do record each of these Zoom and Learns, and they are stored online on a YouTube channel, which is in the chat. So feel free to go there and see all the other Zooms. I think we're pushing about 55 or 60 of these now and there. So you could pretty much almost find anything you need to know there. And we try and bring on people like Samantha Hays to teach different classes to you. Last week, we had a lawyer on that talked Prop 19, et cetera. We're trying to do that more and more. So without further ado, we do have others to introduce on this call. So my co-host, Mary Jane Morris with Granite Escrow.
Woohoo.
Mary, you want to introduce yourself and your team?
I'd be happy to. Hi, I'm Mary Jane. I am a self-proclaimed forms nerd. I am it's a high compliment in my circles. So I'd also like to remind you that Granite Escrow is opening pre-escrows, meaning we can have your entire transaction up and running before you even have a buyer, which is saying something. That's pretty good. So I'd also like to introduce Tracy from our San Diego office, and is maybe out there and I just can't see her.
I haven't seen her come on yet.
Yeah. Tracy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your San Diego office?
Oh, hey, everybody. Our San Diego office, we have 7 extraordinary escrow officers. I'm here for you as a resource. And big picture, we all work together. Quick story, Mary Jane had a client that wanted to do a signing in our San Diego office, took care of that. Then I had to get the docs to our La Jolla office, then they got them back to Temecula. We have 9 offices throughout Southern California, and we're here for you. You know, at the end of the day, we love what we do. Escrow is our sole focus, and we are the best at protecting your client's money and information from wire fraud and cybercrime. So feel free to reach out, any questions, and we love doing these classes for you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tracy. Without further ado, our hero, our friend, our team leader, Samantha Hays, longtime transaction coordinator, years and years, broker, knows her stuff. She's who I call when I don't know. I asked her to lead us in this class today. So Sam, why don't you introduce yourself and get started?
Okay, let's use my screen sharing for everybody.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for those kind words, and my apologies. I'm having an allergy issue, so I will do my best. If I'm not clear, please put it in the chat. My name's Sam Hays. I've been doing this 18 plus years. I'm in the process of finally getting my brokers. I, like Mary Jane, am a total forms nerd. I'm a C.A.R. forms trainer, CTC, TC, realtor, about 6,000 plus transactions. I just love paperwork. It's what I do. So I'm here to kind of go through what I've seen from a couple of different trainings I've taken. Again, I am not your broker of record. I'm merely sharing information. Please verify everything with your broker of record on any of your files. So, oops, too many clicks. So we have 2 brand new forms and then several that were revised. On the revised forms, what I did was take notes of anything that's different or any major changes. Otherwise, the big deal ones, as Mary Jane was saying, because of the law changing on July 1st, is the fire hardening and defensible space. I did put in the chat the quick guide from C.A.R. regarding this topic so that you have that for reference. There's a lot about this form because, as you know, we just had the home hardening form. The law is going to keep changing and changing on this, more so depending on how the summer goes and how many fires we could end up with. This is becoming more and more of an issue we're going to probably see, and that's why the form's worded the way it is, more and more local communities and areas deciding that there are requirements for that area regarding home hardening, CAL FIRE coming in, reports, and that type of thing. Expect to see this come up more and more. Currently, none of the, when we get to the form, the boxes, they're supposed to check if you know. However, it's going to be a mandatory requirement by 2025 to be very familiar with the issues about where the hardening and where fire can get into the different properties. So starting off, why is this form, or what's this form required on? This form is the same code as the TDS, which means you're going to want to make sure that this form is included as soon as possible on your transactions. If it's not per RPA 10, as we know, that can extend out contingency timeframes. It's for properties that are noted on the NHD that are in high and very high fire areas. They're 2010 and older, and they are TDS required. If it is TDS exempt, REOs, trusts, probates, not a required form. However, it can be included as an advisory on any transaction, and you're going to want to check with your brokers. Some brokerages may do that for risk management. The very first one is where to find the information or what for the seller to look for on their property regarding the disclosure when you're on the form. The next one that you're going to note when you're on this form is the checkbox to make sure the advisory and boxes are voluntary disclosure. That's what I'm talking about, that you're going to see this a lot, where even if it doesn't apply, I think a lot of brokers are going to include it for risk management based on the fact that things can be changing over the next few years based on what's required for the state. There's going to be some issues in the new form, and I need to pull one up. I'll put one in the box for everybody, or I think I did. The big issue is the fact that these reports are going to have costs associated with them. And either the buyer accepts the responsibility for up to the next year after the close, or the seller may already have these reports stating CAL FIRE's come in, taking a look at the property and the home hardening. What is suggested by C.A.R's training, and also with one of the other associations trainings, this is something you're going to probably want to start looking into, adding to your offers or being ready to counter, especially if you're in some of the areas in East County in San Diego, but also some of the other more wildland areas. And if you know you have a local restriction, again, it's a statewide issue. More and more, you're going to see this being incorporated because it's that cost. And then suddenly the concern is if after close of escrow, new ordinances, new laws are passed, and suddenly this buyer is responsible for a report that could be several $100s and we're not made aware of it, that's going to be something that they could be coming back on the sellers afterwards. So to get ahead of that, even though these new laws and things are not in place yet, is part of why this is being pushed.
And Sam, this is a statewide, this isn't a countywide.
Correct. It is statewide. However, county issues can be the local requirements and ordinances based on where you're located. If you're in canyon area, if you're in forest area, especially if you're doing deals like in Big Bear, Riverside, anywhere along those lines. And if you know you've recently had a big fire, you're going to want to definitely make sure you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Different parts on the form are also about where did they get the info, who did they get the report from, was it CAL FIRE, was it somebody local, and if the seller actually has the inspection report. I don't expect to see a lot of those yet. I think we're going to see more and more of them in the next year.
I was going to mention that in Riverside County, we just had an article come out that said that CAL FIRE tried to use their COVID shutdown time wisely, and we're inspecting properties up to 20 of them a day. So areas where they know that they have to tell people to cut back the weeds and that sort of stuff. So we've had a lot of activity in our area already trying to get ahead of fire season. Very important.
It's definitely more East County down in this neck of the woods, but if you were also anywhere from the 2007, the 2011 fires in San Diego County, Mira Mesa, Scripps Ranch, going out to Alpine, Ramona, Poway, expect this to, you're going to see more and more about this and be aware of this. I would definitely include that on those transactions. Again, verify with your broker of record. There is a zone viewer, if you haven't had a chance to order the NHD, that you can send your clients to look up for them to decide if they're high fire. Very similar to the Megan's Law database where the realtors are not encouraged. This is not something you want to become an expert in. This could be a lot of liability, but you can direct your clients there. And this information is all over the new SBSA on page 5 in section A14. And there's about 5 different websites to direct your clients to.
I signed up for CAL FIRE. I've already been notified of 3 fires since like Thursday last week. Also, when I went on their site and you go to click on the home hardening, they have nice clean lists of what a complete home hardening looks like. So the CAL FIRE website I found to be very useful.
And they've got some good checkoff lists and different marketing pieces too that you can share. I know with your clients when I looked at the site as well that you, again, check with your broker, risk management, liability, all that fun stuff, but just to be aware of, because this is going to be a very hot topic. Haha, but seriously, in the next few months, especially after how last fire season went. So the transfer of listing agreement. One of the issues that comes up, especially right now, people are changing brokerages, wandering around. The listing belongs to the broker. And when you join a brokerage, you're going to want to talk to that broker to confirm what is their policy on transferring listings, taking them with you. A lot of brokers will tend to do it as a referral fee agreement that they'll let it take with, but that they still get a referral fee. We didn't really have clear documentation on how to do this previously. So now this new form, transfer of listing agreement, clearly goes through and outlines who's responsible, where are we transferring, how are we transferring, clarifies the agency. And it also goes through to clarify that these are new instructions to escrow, that we're going to have a new commission agreement broken down so everybody's aware of what's going on, along with you do have that brand new agency to release it. It releases all the disclosures. It releases the listing documentation. If you received any reports or anything along those lines. This one though, I know a lot of times the agents sign on behalf of the broker on the listing agreement, modification of terms and things like that. This has to be signed by the broker. This is not one of those where you can step in for them. It needs to either be the broker or their manager who's responsible and has the authority to release the listing. Also has to be signed on the receiving end's broker, not the agents. The brokers have to sign this. So, and basically it's going to go through the list here for you, and I'll put these slides up in the chat as well. I'll make sure everybody has the links to them. But once you go, it breaks it down that it's just everything that makes sense, but it's just clarifying it so there's no questions for everyone. Now this form is been around, but those of us who are in more urban areas probably don't use it very often. It's an agricultural addendum. However, it's been clarified to talk about hemp and cannabis cultivation. We're allowed to grow, but the buyer has to verify with the local jurisdiction. I know there are different areas and different people that are looking into new businesses and new people taking advantage of new laws available in California. With this, it basically states that yes, they're allowed to. However, they have to verify. It's on them, and you won't verify, you cannot verify, but they will need to make sure that they get all the information. It was pretty much just saying it's okay to do now. Cooperating broker compensation agreement. This one identified now the broker, property, and seller. It identifies the buyer's broker. It clarifies if in the MLS or not in the MLS. Also, if there's a sale to a tenant, this can be an issue that's come up about how I've had several tenants are trying to buy the properties they've been living in, and clarifying how the commission is going to get paid and how everybody's dealing out for agency. There's a place now you can add additional information so that you can go ahead and clarify anything that might be specific to that transaction. If it's, I've reduced my commission by 5,000, but I'm getting this much back to my client. If they are doing the commission reduction in lieu of a credit, all those things, there's now space to do that. This also goes as instructions to escrow. So this form can be sent over to have escrow revise the commissions. And it states agents management must approve. Again, we need to make sure anything that changes commissions, because the commission is the broker is signing off. Now, one thing I'm running into a lot, because I know as competitive as the market has been, is the fact that commissions keep being put into the transaction. Very top of the RPA states the brokers are not party to the commission, or excuse me, party to the contract, which means your commission does not go on an addendum because you are not party to the contract. You'd use this form so that way you can go ahead and document your commission credits or how you're doing any reduction in commission. It's something that comes up over and over again. I know it's a little silly thing, but it shows how much knowledge you have and being an expert in your field, which is why you do what you do. And the ESD was very basic, just one little change to it. This is stating about the civil code, multifamily, and about the water conservation plumbing disclosure. So in 2017, any property built prior to 1994 statewide is to be on a low flow, multifamily with 2019. However, it was not a point of sale requirement on purpose so that it didn't delay any of the closings or anything along those lines. City of San Diego proper does have this requirement, and those in trusts and things are not exempt. So you're going to want to be looking at your contracts, and in section 7 on the top of page 3, who's got that responsibility, you're going to want to address that. And you need to be using the transfer of retrofit form from the City of San Diego for only City of San Diego properties.
And
So
that
that's
is, just to clarify, that is a San Diego thing, not
correct.
that's specific to San Diego. This is right here.
Correct. That is specific. That's why the two things are such a big deal, because you have people, you have statewide, not point of sale. City of San Diego is point of sale required. And each jurisdiction, as we've been talking, same with the fire and everything else, you're going to need to get really familiar about exactly where you're selling to know what's going to be if they have a point of sale requirement.
Right. But we have half of the group on here from San Diego and the other half from Riverside and Orange County. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. So just as an example, more along the lines, the City of San Diego one is an example of how it is that important. So you're going to want to verify wherever you're selling property in which one of the areas for what's required for them. The lease listing agreement. Now this really probably doesn't affect a lot of people on here. However, one of the things that's a big deal about this, especially if you have a broker who does not want you doing any type of property management whatsoever, is to make sure that this states that there is no agency agreement on that. If you're just setting up a lease listing and walking away as soon as the property's been occupied, you're not going to be managing it. This clarifies and lets you do that. Again, check with your broker of record, but that's part of why this form, they wanted to do some clarifications to allow for agents to go ahead. You can still list a lease in the MLS, help out a client, but then you walk away, you are no longer a property manager. And it specifically states that the agency's been released. It also adds disclosure of death on the property, and you have a space to put in any material facts that could be that are known to your client, known to you, or verbiage required by your broker for you to be able to do this. Another one that people are probably not using, because typically anybody that you're hiring has their own contract. However, something to be noted about the property images agreement is the fact that this form exists when you have somebody who's maybe a friend or just getting started in the business and they're utilizing their skills for your photography of the property. This goes through and helps indemnify if there's any damage or issue, if a drone crashes or there's any problems during the photo shoot. It seems silly, but more and more this is going to be an issue, and it's also going to be on whether or not the drone pilot knows their regulations, where they're allowed to fly, and the other restrictions that they need to be aware of. And it takes it off of you and your brokerage. Check with your broker. They may want this as an extra layer of protection. They may feel that the contracts you're signing are enough. Referral fee agreement just clarifies if you're going under contract to buy, sell, or lease, and it also adds the broker's DRE number to it. All three of the residential listing agreements have changed. More so, you'll see on these that the biggest changes are about the coming soon, which everybody, because we all are part of different MLSs, you're going to need to verify your requirements for your MLS that you're participating in and make sure that you get the correct information for when you can start going ahead and going to market. It also discusses the presentation of love letters. Some of the sellers want to see these, even though it's going against Section 8 on the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory that came out in October. Most brokerages are saying, no, we don't want to see these. We don't want them presented. Not everybody's been as up to date about it. The seller can say, yes, they'd like to see them. That's their option to mark the box. However, This clarifies stating the seller, or excuse me, the broker will not review the letters. The broker is advising not to use the letters as part of their decision-making process. And the broker cannot be liable for any information contained in there. Another big thing, which is a mindset change for those of us in Southern California versus Northern California, is we now have permission to order the NHD report when you take the listing. The seller agrees to be responsible for the cost. Why is that important? Well, that's where you can get your information for if you're in the high fire, very high fire, for your FHDS, and when you're negotiating your contract, if it's an issue or not an issue. So that's why we're going to need to start getting in the habit. As soon as the listing's taken, go ahead and take the NHD, which will then also change how you're writing your offers. Because if you put in an NHD company, but there's another one on file, there's going to need to be some flexibility there. You either put or seller's choice, or it's something that'll have to be countered. Little silly details, but they're really important. And it's going to be issues because escrow typically can't pay what's not instructed on the contract. And then you could also end up with two NHDs and we still have to have them both signed to document the file.
That has some guarantees on it as well. The NHDs do once paid for, not until they're paid for, but once paid for, they come with some insurance. So that's really good because those maps are always changing for the fire, flood, all of it.
There's also an issue, and they're still waiting. I've not seen the update on the NAR DOJ settlement regarding the MLSs and having access, even if an agent's not party to the MLS, and the fact that somebody who's not part of the MLS could have access to your lockbox and your address would be out in a public domain. That has not been finished off yet. That's part of what's causing the delay of the forms coming out, is they're kind of waiting to see how's this going to play out, what's going to be the decision. So if that does, I'll make sure Mary Jane and I'll both make sure that everybody sees any updates because she's been very on top of that topic. And this is the one that for the residential listing agreement open, if you take that type of listing agreement, just all the different details that went through, the main ones again though are seller representation for this, because again, with it being open, it clarifies the broker and seller's duties and the presentation of the offers and the love letters. The NHD can be ordered, what's out in the MLS. It's just a lot of reiteration and really clarifying for people so there aren't any gray areas, that everybody knows exactly what to expect. Same issue about the key safe and lock boxes. That one will also be adjusted depending on what the response is. And that's the seller reserved one. Same thing with all the little bits and pieces. Again, clarifies about the coming soon, clarifies your broker duties, love letters. Nobody wants to deal with them pretty much. Order your NHD, and we just don't know if how public your address is going to be till we find out what that decision is made. Statewide buyer and seller advisory is now going to be, I believe, 16 pages, but it's got a good reason. Page 2 has now become a table of contents. So when you take a look at the form, it goes through and it outlines everything where you can find it, especially helpful with the fire home hardening issues that are discussed in there. The ones that were added were the fire home hardening, listing the websites to view. Again, you're going to want to direct your client. This is not something you probably want to become an expert in. There's a whole discussion about wildlife and protecting of the property regarding wildlife and wildlife's potential access. And we now also are dealing with the sea level rise and list different websites to review. This is very important with your coastal properties and paying attention to what the Coastal Commission's been working on. This is going to become also more and more of an issue about the potential of losing some of the, depending on how much with the weather change and with, with global warming, it's something we're going to see more in the next 10 years. So we'd be ahead of it. And again, it's to protect from agents and sellers having potential liability down the line. And the seller's purchase of replacement property. The biggest verbiage change on this is one line, but it's suitable property to move into. So the seller may be moving in with family, the seller may be renting, but it still states the seller doesn't have to buy another property to say they don't, if they use this form in your contract. It just has to have a suitable place to move into. That's pretty much, I'm happy to answer any questions. We'll show you the forms, but it's pretty basic. The biggest one is the firearm hardening, really is the biggest form that's going to be changing everybody because of that TDS impact and also the negotiations impact.
I've had no comments or questions in the chat. Is there any forms that you want to share with them that shows any of this stuff or no?
Yep, let me get them up. I was trying to get them over from C.A.R. I can send the link from it. It's in the new form section at C.A.R. Let's close that down. Benefits of too many screens.
The biggest change that we didn't see yet that we know is coming that was discussed in our Sam's and my training was that DOJ suit with NAR is going to require buyers come December, buyers agents to disclose how much they're earning off the, it's being done for two reasons. One, buyers agents in a sales puffing kind of situation have a tendency to say, I'm free to you. To the buyer, and that is not true. You are being compensated through cooperation with the listing agent, and so they want us to stop saying that. And the way that they're helping us do that is to create a form where you're going to have to disclose everything you earned on the transaction.
And it goes both ways too. The seller needs to now disclose as well. Some of the MLSs and the boards have already changed to where, like in the MLS apps and stuff online, it shows that. Where it shows seller and buyer compensation percentages where it never did before. So some are already stepping up to show that.
My concern today, besides the DOJ concern, which is obviously something we always have to take seriously, but the big concern is that transaction coordinators are often paid through the contract. The buyer has been charged or the seller has been charged the transaction coordinator fee. And so it's, and through the years, transaction coordinators and agents have tried not to have that conversation multiple times because they, sellers will, or buyers will.
Sam, you may want to hit stop sharing.
Yep.
They will determine that it's an optional charge and not an additional commission, although that is what it is legally. And there may be additional discussions. Sam and I have been preparing for this for 10 years, and as many of you TCs are, that someday they're going to turn their attention to the transaction coordinators. We got missed in the TRID rules. We got missed. Transaction coordinators and assistants and all those are the backbone of the industry as far as who actually types most things and passes them around and stuff like that. So we're not sure how that's going to land. Some brokers have already taken a stance that they will or will not allow certain things. They want you to work for the brokerage. None of that is a requirement yet. None of it. But there are no fines. There are no penalties. We've spent thousands of dollars with good attorneys like John Giardinelli getting to the bottom of this. But I think for many of the people on here who either charge off their TC fees or are TCs, that disclosure may simply cause another conversation that we have been trying to avoid.
Well, and piggybacking on that, I know I've been, and you and I have had different experiences and different things on this, but it's also a RESPA issue because of not being disclosed ahead of time. And at some point, has it been pushed to the wall yet? No, but it's, again, because your commission's not part of the contract, TC fees should not be in the contract. They should be disclosed in writing, either in the residential listing agreement or in a buyer broker agreement prior to any contract being signed, is what's been the conservative choice if that fee is being pushed or if that fee is being asked of a client versus an agent.
Yes, the method of taking the transaction coordinator fee in the contract, it will probably be among the first things to go. And while I'm the last person to want additional government regulation and that sort of thing, without any rules about this, we are all doing the best we can. The only thing I can tell you is it's not illegal at this time. Whether it's unethical or immoral is a personal choice. And the entire time I've been in real estate and transaction coordinators have existed, that is a 50-50. Some people are very comfortable with it. Some people are not comfortable with it at all. So you will just have to make that decision. But the reason I brought it up here today was because once we start having clients sign off on the details of what we've earned, I think that conversation is going to happen more often.
I agree. I agree. And one
Right.
one other thing we didn't bring up, just so everybody want to make sure everybody knows, PEDS and all COVID forms are gone. They're no longer required as of last week on the 15th. If you have an RLA, C.A.R, you know, that listing agreement rider, you're going to need to do a modification of terms to remove that, since most of those things we can't enforce any longer because they're not required with the masks and some of the other things. There is a quick guide, which I will upload as well. Excuse me. That kind of goes through everything about what is and what's not. Again, your clients are allowed to request what they want for any showing in their property. Also, the brokers are allowed to have their situation, but we just need everything documented and in writing.
Yeah, the COVID forms went away, but there is if you're holding an open house, which is now available, there is a sign-in form that is mandated.
They've gone back and forth on it.
Well, C.A.R had put it out there, and it's still out there as far as the guidelines for open houses. And it is a mandated form, and you read it, and it basically releases the liability that you know that you're entering at your own risk. But it doesn't mandate, like, you know, masks and all the other stuff.
The other point that I want to repeat that Sam just said, I want to just be really clear about that. If you had the PED arrangement already built into your listings and things like that, and they're not closed, just because C.A.R eliminated them doesn't eliminate the agreement you made with the party to continue to act in a thus and such way. So if this is a conversation for your existing transactions, listings go so fast these days. But if you're still, even if you're in escrow on a listing and you're closing on the exit listing agreement, you're supposed to clarify whether the seller is comfortable with you continuing the earlier practices or go ahead and give you permission to ease up on the practices. I figured that one's going to trip somebody up somewhere along the way. Somebody's going to say, nobody told me it wasn't required anymore, and my contract says it is. So
Right. Sam, there are a couple questions in the chat. I don't know if you have the chat open. If not, I can read them out.
I saw Jessica's. I was just about to say for Jessica's form. So if the seller leaves it blank and they see the
Well, tell us what it is first, so everybody knows.
Okay, so the fire home hardening question about that form and filling it out. When the property is in a high fire zone, verify all with your broker how they would like it documented. What I would suggest, again, would be have the email where they're saying from the other client saying that they won't fill it out. I usually typically have that initialed, and then I would send the page out of the NHD report that shows it is in high fire. Also have the buyers can acknowledge the form so that they've received the information. Those are probably going to be your best bets, but I would verify with the broker of record that you're talking to.
And this brings up a couple questions, because I've heard, you know, I do business all over the place in the state, and I've heard a lot of questions pertaining to fires. So, and a lot of them around, one says it's not in a fire zone, another says it is in a fire zone, meaning the NHD does, but then the buyer goes to get insurance and they won't insure it in California because there was a fire within X amount of miles of it and it's classified as high fire zone. This comes up quite frequently this time of year, and it's already started. So, you know, having everything discussed out in the open up front and having this in place and knowing that going into it is definitely going to save you some headache on the back end, because typically they don't even start talking to insurance until they're more than halfway through that transaction. And, you know, that could be something that holds things up when they have to go through a high risk company or something like that to just get insurance to be able to close on the property.
Well, the thing to remember, this happened with the home warranties with everybody home this past year, is insurance companies don't want to pay out. That's not what they're there. I mean, they're there, but they don't want to. They'll want to avoid it. So the more you can get information, everybody's rates are going to go up. Everybody's restrictions are get narrowed down because of all the costs from last year, the fires that happened, and being concerned about potential for this year. I just added the quick guide that was from C.A.R about fire insurance. And I agree with Tommy, it's a conversation. Plus, you know, when you're looking around a property, you know, when you're looking at some place that's going to be hard to get a fire truck into because you're out in a canyon or you're up in the mountains or, you know, there's been fires in those areas. We're all aware of it living in this state. So it's, Tommy's right. It's a conversation when showing properties, start it then. There's no reason they can't say, contact your insurance provider, let them know you're looking to buy property in this area and see what they tell you.
Yeah.
I have it in front of me, Sam, but didn't we break down the inspection contingency to include insurability recently? Isn't, I don't have it in front.
I can look, let me look one up. I think so.
I think the condition, your inspection contingency now includes insurability. Insurability is in fact a C.A.R, whether our contingency that needs to be removed, whether or not they forced it into the inspection period so that you'll do your work sooner. I just don't have it right in front of me. I don't want to open this.
Let me pull one up.
It's ringing a bell that we had improved our C.R. form.
I believe it was in section, I think it's 14. I'm double checking the contract. And thanks for your patience with me, guys. Sorry, medicine head due to allergies has been fun today. So.
C.A.R was really anticipating, they were saying their biggest, all the C.A.R attorneys around on our training class were saying that their biggest concern with the home hardening was what city or county is your authority? Is it the city of Temecula or the county of Riverside? Is it city of San Diego or the county of San Diego? You know, city or county. So C.A.R said they almost overwrote this form. Like they could not solve that problem. They couldn't figure out what to have it default to. So they're saying that the thing we most need to watch out for is that we're following the appropriate rules for that where your property is. I feel as a broker, just putting my broker hat on for a moment, that's going to come out down on both sides. Certainly a seller should be able to, first of all, sellers presumed by law to know everything about the property, whether they do or not, but they seems like they are the most motivated to run it down and find it out. However, as I've discussed about this many times in all of our classes, that the Supreme Court said on that Cloud and Finesse case I told you about many times, that buyer's agents have an obligation to run things down when there's an issue. That doesn't mean pulling permits, but it does at least find out if you're getting the correct information from what city or county, or at least be able to document that you can't figure out which city or county, and then C.A.R saying to please go with the more stringent rules of the choice. So if you have a lesser version and a more serious version, they recommend that you take the more serious version to heart. But they're expecting most of us to have trouble discovering who is our fire authority in our area. That's what they're expecting the most.
It's going to be I think it's going to be involving, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how the summer goes and where we are with weather and everybody else. Something to bear in mind is everyone took a financial difficulty with COVID and different things happened. So people businesses, governments, entities are going to be looking for where can they generate funds.
Correct. And just to answer another question that was in here on the open house sign-in sheet. This is the form, open house showing guidelines sign-in. I did put it in the chat as well. So this is basically the form that you would have with you if you're holding an open house, and it goes through that they agree to certain things and then they sign in and then they're eligible to enter. And this should be also in your file.
You know, many of our agents have talked about the disappointing part of losing PEDS is that you were able to get their email address and get them to sign something before you had to go see them. So I think we should be keeping our eyes on, maybe this is the kind of thing that could go out in advance as well. Well, of course, open house, if there is, they walk in on you, right? So I'm just thinking out loud how to create the same kind of
well, I mean, it's a nice thing is this gives you, you know, instead of just an open house registry where someone automatically just discourages it and puts false information in most cases, this is more of a, you know, well, not more of, it is a C.A.R form and therefore talks about, you know, certain COVID guidelines, et cetera, on there. You may be more likely to get good information on it than bad, you know. But nevertheless, I mean, it is a way of easily forcing somebody to sign in, regardless if it's good or bad, right? So if you want ideas of, you know, how to capture more accurate data on about a 90% scale, reach out to me direct and we'll have a conversation.
Right.
All right, I don't see any other comments as far as questions or concerns in the chat. Sam, did you have anything else to share on these forms?
No, that's really the only thing. Again, always verify with your broker. If you have any questions or need specifics about stuff, I'm happy to share what I've seen, how things have been done on files. Mary Jane, I know, is always available. And thank you again for your patience with my scratchy voice and allergies attacking.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Sam.
Yes, we very much appreciate you. I want to remind you all that this was the baby version of the forms for this year, and that we really got a whopper coming. Training will start in August for all the C.A.R certified trainers, and everybody will be getting themselves up and running. And then probably around September, we can start booking classes. Now, remember, for the new contract and the 70 cleaned up forms.
And next week, you want to let everybody know what we have next week too?
I am. That's where I was heading. So,
okay.
All right. So besides the 15th, where we had a lot of, where we had the COVID forms released at the end of the month, at this point, it still does look like the moratorium is going to end as well. C.A.R reminded us again that these kinds of things happen in the last 72 hours, you know, as people begin to panic. And so it could still happen that we get pushed off even a short time again. But at the end of the month, that we are back to being able to evict and foreclose, and they are expecting an avalanche in the courts, not kind of like a full blown. Small claims, they're saying even if you filed things now, you're very likely not going to get a date until 2022 in small claims. So negotiation is one thing C.A.R is always asking us to talk about. It's always better if we can settle. So we want to talk about that. But in anticipation of that, we have been holding off some subjects that we would like to get into with you guys starting next week. We are having Tiffany from Dedicated Credit Repair for a couple of reasons. Not only is she awesome and well known to us up here in Riverside County, but she's one of the few, less than 10 in the United States, that holds a DOJ license for credit repair, and that has to be renewed yearly, which is even more stringent than our 4-year background check, and that sort of thing for the work we do. We are already anticipating that for most of the month of July, we are going to be talking about forbearance. Tracy and I are already working on pre-foreclosure and what that market looks like, because, you know, we're just going to roll back the classes that we had in 2007, 2010, and teach you guys with Tommy's help how to farm those NODs, get out there, what good techniques to get a seller's attention. One of the things I want to remind people as we go through, I want to send a good vibe out there. When I teach the pre-foreclosure class, I have a whole thing about saving face. Nobody's going to want to tell you how far behind they are or how they got this way, whether they use their money wisely or whether they went to Europe or whatever they did with the money they should have been paying, whether they weren't able to work, how many kids are going to be displaced. It is going to be a very sensitive issue, similar to we had in 2010 and in that arena. So we're going to have renters coming out of the needing places to live and who need to be. In fact, if you aren't working, if you need deals and you are not working the renters market, especially going into this next phase where you can repair their credit, everybody can see it on a particularly secure website, and get these people graduated and back out into their lives so that they can buy homes. You could easily have 60, 80, 100 buyers in repair very shortly coming into July. So Tiffany from Dedicated Credit Repair will be on next week, and she's going to be talking about post-COVID credit recovery. Okay. And really just, we always do pre-interviews with everybody before we come on with you guys. And just the conversation we had with her ran off the page. Like we all had so much to say. So I'm very excited for you to hear next week how she thinks forbearance is going to go, what she thinks about the renter market, who should be signing up for these recovery services and how fast you can get them in so that they can get cleared sooner. We are going to have properties that come available because people are evicted, and some sellers are not going to want to go through that again or may not be able to and are going to sell. So we are going to have a fresh market again when this moratorium happens, but there's going to be some sensitivity that's going to need to be used, just like when we went through the short sale market. One of the things I used to say to make people feel better was lots of realtors lost 5 or 10 properties or more in the short sale market as well, because they were taking advantage of those low loans, low entry rate loans as well. So we are preparing for a month of really educating you guys, getting you out there, staying on top of the rule changes, all of that. So don't, even though it sounds like perhaps sounds like a very tame subject, we're going to be into it next week, getting ready for the release of the moratorium at the end of the month.
Yep. Keep in mind again, every Monday, same Zoom link. It doesn't change, 12:30. The only time we don't do it typically is if there's a holiday. So, please put it on your calendar. Let me know or let Mary Jane know if you need an invite that will allow you to just click it so it falls on your calendar. Whatever it is that we need to do to help you remember that we have a different Zoom and Learn every Monday, please let us know. We're definitely down to help you do that.
On behalf of Tommy, myself, Tracy, Jonna, all of our class, Sam for sure, Tashina, all of the ones I see out there that teach, Wendy, a whole bunch of you, Corey, a bunch of you. We are, we're all available. I'm sorry, lost my train of thought for a second. We're all available to do these classes individually, to do these classes on a Zoom, to do these classes live in your environment, to teach a whole group or 2 people. So please avail yourselves of scheduling those appointments with us, and we'd be happy to train your team. Take our time. We can fit it into how much ever time you have, little, big or little. We'll make it work for you. Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to go back and click on the link in the chat to all of our past Zooms, and if you see something in there that you would like, training on for your brokerage or your team or a small group, you and a handful, let us know. So, all right, everybody, thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next week to talk about what it's going to look like credit-wise leading into forbearance season. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you. We will stay on. If you have any additional questions, we're here to answer.